Welcome back everyone to the next end of the month results video. In this video we will go over all the results over the last 3 months for all channels that I've been tracking. We start with a general overview including total fights, predictions, etc. Oddsmakers versus Tapology versus YouTube Predictors, results of all UFC prediction channels including most and least correct picks, most profitable and unprofitable predictors, and which channels pick the favorite or the underdogs the most. And lastly, we will look at some fighter insights. Which fighters were the biggest favorite in odds and in picks, and biggest upsets. Underdogs who won their fights against the odds and picks. So, over the last 3 months we had a total of 143 fights. We are tracking around 100 UFC prediction channels, and those 100 channels made a total of 7,636 predictions over the last 3 months, which means that on average each channel made predictions on 76.4 fights over that period. Of all predictions that were made by these channels for the outcome of the fight, 4,736 were correct or 62%, and 2,900 were incorrect for 38%. Now let's compare the Oddsmakers versus the Tapology community and the YouTube prediction channels and see which had the best results overall these last 3 months. The favorite fighter in odds won the fight 98 times out of 139 fights. We ignore 4 fights from these results because the odds were exactly even. So the favorite fighter in odds won 70.5%, and if you placed a $100 bet on the favorite fighter in odds to win, you would have won $266 for a 1.9% return of investment. Had you placed a $100 bet on the underdog every time, you would have lost $2,925 for a minus 21% ROI. And what about the Tapology community? Are they better at predicting the winner of the fight? Well, they did worse. The favorite in picks by the Tapology community won 92 times out of 142 fights for a 64.8% correct pick percentage. If you had bet $100 on the favorite in picks, you could have lost $752 for a minus 5.3% return of investment. What about the UFC prediction channels on YouTube? Did they do better overall? And no. They had the worst results in terms of picking the winner for the fights. The favorite fighters in picks by the YouTube prediction channels won 88 times out of 140 or 62.9%. And if you placed a $100 bet on the favorite fighter in picks by the YouTube prediction channels, you would have lost $1,432 for a minus 10.2% return of investment. So, in conclusion, over the last 3 months, the Oddsmakers were a lot better at predicting the winner of each fight. Okay, let's find out which channels picked the winner of the fight the least and most times correct. For these results over the last 3 months, a channel must have made at least 50 predictions. Otherwise, some channels would slip in that only made 10 predictions. At the end, I will show a slide that has all channels in there regardless of how many picks they made. Also remember that for this data and for the rest of the results in this video, I count all picks a channel makes. If a channel makes a pick, regardless of high or low confidence, it's included in these results. With that said, here is the top 10 of least correct picks over the last 3 months. At number 10 we have the now retired from YouTube Lucas Tracy MMA. 70 out of his 121 picks were correct for 57.9%. At number 9 is Axel MMA. From his 71 predictions, 41 were correct for 57.7% correct picks. The MMA Guru is in 8th place. 80 out of his 139 predictions were correct for 57.6%. In 7th place is Clanbot. He made 133 predictions and 76 were correct for 57.1%. At number 6 we have Half the Battle. 38 out of his 67 picks were correct for a 56.7 correct pick percentage. In 5th place for the least correct picks over the last 3 months is the UFC fighter Manny Moicano. He also had 38 predictions correct, like half the battle, but he made 68 predictions, so his correct pick percentage is 55.9%. The Finns Jets is in 4th place. He had 33 out of his 60 picks correct, or 55%. In 3rd place we have Tiger Bomb MMA. 75 out of his 137 predictions were correct, for 54.7% correct. Paul from the Dogger Pass podcast on the Mayo Media Network on YouTube is the second worst predictor over the last 3 months. Out of his 78 picks, 42 were correct, for a 53.7 correct pick percentage. And in number 1 over these last 3 months with the least correct picks is Just Win Baby MMA. He made a total of 54 picks and 29 of them were correct. And with those results, he has the lowest correct pick percentage with 53.7%. Now, let's find out which of these channels were the best predictors over the last 3 months. At number 10 for the most correct picks is Left Lane MMA. 70 out of 105 predictions were correct, or exactly 2/3, for 66.7%. At number 9 is MMA Addict with 45 out of 67 picks correct, for a 67.2 correct pick percentage. Pick'em MMA is in 8th place with 91 correct out of 135 predictions, for a total of 67.4% correct. In 7th place is MMA Leaked. He made exactly the minimum amount of picks to be included, and from those 50 picks he had 34 of them correct, or 68%. Cody from the Dogger Pass podcast is in 6th place. Unlike his co-host Paul, who ended up being the second worst picker over the last 3 months, Cody did a lot better than Paul. 62 out of his 91 predictions were correct, or 68.1%. At number 5 for most correct picks we have Bet Slam with Sam. He made 119 predictions and 82 of them were correct, for a 68.9 correct pick percentage. And in 4th place we have Once Upon a Slugfest. He made the most predictions in this top 10 with 136 in total. Out of those 136 he had 94 correct, for 69.1%. And now we go to the top 3 of best predictors over the last 3 months. And we start with Premium Picks in 3rd place. 43 out of his 62 picks were correct, for a 69.4 correct pick percentage. And in 2nd place we have Pure Picks. He made 70 picks and a total of 50 were correct, for 71.4%. And in 1st place, and being the best predictor over these last 3 months, we have MMA Lewis. 46 of his 62 predictions were correct, which gave him the highest correct pick percentage with 74.2%. So, well done to MMA Lewis and the rest of the channels in this top 10 for the excellent results over the last 3 months. Having a high correct pick percentage doesn't always translate to winning money. In this top 10, there's still a channel that lost money with their picks. That's why it's important to also look at the total amount of money won or lost and return of investment. We will cover that in the next part of this video. But first, here's the complete overview of all channels with the number of correct picks, their total picks and the correct pick percentage. Feel free to pause the video to have a closer look at these results. Let's find out which channels could have won and lost you the most money if you blindly followed all their predictions and placed a $100 bet on the outcome of each fight. Here the same rules apply as before, with a minimum of 50 picks and all picks predictions made count. To calculate the amount of money won or lost, we use the odds from the tail of the tape that are shown right before the start of each fight. At number 10 for most unprofitable predictors in terms of return of investment over the last 3 months is Greedo Plays. On the right side you see amount invested, which basically shows he made 135 predictions and for each one we placed a $100 bet for the outcome of the fight for a total investment of $13,500. By doing that you could have lost a total of $1,529 for a minus 11.3% return of investment. At number 9 is Cody Dank with a loss of $1,805 and a minus 13.1% return of investment over his 138 predictions. At number 8 we have Lucas Tracy MMA. If you followed all of his picks, you could have ended up losing $1,627 for a ROI of minus 13.4%. In 7th place is the MMA Guru, the first channel with a loss of more than $2,000. If you followed all of his 139 picks and placed a $100 bet on each, you could have lost $2,035 for a minus 13.6% return of investment. Money Moicano is in 6th place, losing $1,010 for a minus 14.9% return of investment over his 68 predictions. Just Win Baby MMA is number 5, the channel who had the lowest correct pick percentage over the last 3 months. He could have lost you $891 for a minus 16.5 return of investment. In 4th place, with a loss of $1,026, is the Finch Jets, with a minus 17.1% return of investment, rounded down from 17.09%. In 3rd place of most unprofitable predictors is Paul from the Dogger Pass podcast, with a loss of $1,336 and a return of investment of also minus 17.1%, but rounded up from minus 17.13%. So his ROI was slightly worse than the Finch Jets, with a difference of 0.04%. In 2nd place we have Axel MMA, with a loss of $1,327 for a return of investment of minus 18.7% over his 71 predictions. And at number 1, and being the most unprofitable predictor over these last 3 months, we have Tiger Bomb MMA. If you followed all of his 137 predictions and placed a $100 bet on each of them for the outcome of the fight, you could have lost a total of $2,572 and ended up with a return of investment of minus 18.8%. Let's hope these channels will do better over the coming months and climb back to a positive ROI. Now, let's find out which channels could have won you the most money just by blindly following all of their predictions and placing a $100 bet on each of them. Which channels were the most profitable predictors over the last 3 months? At number 10 we have Jacob from We Want Picks with a profit of $387 and a return of investment of 4.3%. At number 9 we have Double Vision MMA 365, winning $675 and a return of investment of 5% over his 136 predictions. Premium Picks is at number 8 with a profit of $431 for a 6.9% ROI. MMA Addict is in 7th place, who could have won you $484 for a ROI of 7.2% over his 67 predictions. In 6th place is Kunat. He made a total of 141 predictions, which is the most in this top 10. If you blindly followed all of his predictions for the winner of each fight, you could have won $1,156 for a ROI of 8.2%. In 5th place is Once Upon a Slugfest, with a profit of $1,304 over his 136 picks for a 9.6% return of investment. At number 4, and the first channel to go over 10% return of investment, is Pure Picks, with a profit of $811 for a 11.6% return of investment over his 70 picks. Then, in 3rd place, we have Cody from the Dogger Pass podcast on the Mayo Media Network. He made 91 predictions and won $1,114 for a 12.2% return of investment. In 2nd place is Bet Slam with Sam, with a total profit of $1,525 over his 119 picks for a return of investment of 12.8%. But in 1st place, and being the most profitable predictor over the last 3 months, we have MMA Lewis, who was also in 1st place for having the most correct pick percentage. If you placed a $100 bet on all of his 62 predictions, you could have won $1,048 for a very nice return of investment of 16.9%. So, congratulations to MMA Lewis for being the most profitable predictor over the last 3 months. And also, congratulations to the rest of the channels that made this top 10 list. Links for the top 10 channels are in the video description below. And here is the complete overview of channels, including channels with less than 50 predictions that I've tracked over the last 3 months, showing their total money won or lost, their return of investment and the total amount invested. Next, we will look at which channels played it safe by picking the favorite fighter the most often and if this is linked to profitability. As mentioned earlier, betting $100 on the favorite each time over the last 3 months would have earned you $266 with a 1.9% return of investment. Will we see more or less profit from the top 10 channels that picked the favorite the most? Channels ranked between 4 and 10 chose the favorite fighter 83.6 to just over 85% of the time, and most of them made money. 2 of the most profitable predictors over the last 3 months, MMA Lewis, who was first, and Pure Picks, who was fourth, often picked the favorite fighter in odds. Most losses are small, except for Greedo Plays, who was in 10th place of the most unprofitable predictors. However, the top 3 channels that picked the favorite the most tell a different story. Axel MMA, who was the second most unprofitable predictor and had a minus 18.7% return of investment, chose the favorite fighter in odds 85.5% of the time. Sportsbook Killers picked the favorite second most with 85.9% of the time but had a minus 9.8 ROI. And the MMA Data Guy picked the favorite 99 out of 110 times for 90% and lost $503 with a minus 4.5% return of investment. What about picking the underdog? Is going against the odds more profitable? Well, overall it seems less profitable to choose the underdog. In this top 10 of channels that picked the underdogs the most, 6 lost money, and from those 6 channels, 2 of them were in 3rd and 4th place as the most unprofitable predictors in the last 3 months. And of the 4 channels that won money, 3 of them have a return of investment between 0.1% and 2.4%. And only 1 channel was in the top 10 of most profitable predictors, which was Jacob from We Want Picks, who was number 10. So, in conclusion, picking the favorite fighters in odds was more profitable than picking the underdog over the last 3 months. Of course, variance plays a big role in these results. If a few more underdogs would have won, these results could look very different. Maybe the favorites performed better than average over the last 3 months and the underdogs performed worse. Speaking of favorites and underdogs, which fighters were the biggest favorites in odds and picks over the last 3 months and which underdogs had the biggest upsets and won their fights against the odds and picks? Let's start with the biggest favorites in odds over the last 3 months. In 5th place is Zachary Reese with minus 800 in odds against Julian Marquez. 4th is Michael Morales against Neil Magny with minus 850 odds. With minus 900 in 3rd place is Wang Kong when she fought against Victoria Leonardo. Tom Nolan was the second biggest favorite in odds with minus 1200 against Alex Reyes. And in 1st place is Peyton Talbot with minus 1600 against Yanis Gamouri, winning in only 19 seconds of the 1st round. So the odds seemed justifiable on that one. For the Tapology community, over the last 3 months, 5 fighters are in 2nd place with 96% of the picks for them. Because Tapology doesn't show decimal odds, I ordered them alphabetically by their first name. And in 1st place of being picked the most by the Tapology community, we have again Peyton Talbot with 97%. And as you can see, only Peyton Talbot and Tom Nolan are both in the top 5 in both the biggest favorite in odds and picks by Tapology. What about the YouTube Prediction Channels? In 2nd place we have Jack Jenkins and Song Kenan, being picked 99% of the time by the UFC Predictions Channels. Interestingly, Song Kenan only had minus 220 in odds when he fought against Ricky Glenn. But the YouTube predictors were correct and Song Kenan managed to win the fight via a decision. And in 1st place, and all being picked 100% of the time by the UFC Prediction Channels, we have Zachary Reese, Michael Morales and again Peyton Talbot. These 3 fighters were also in the top 5 of biggest favorite in odds. But there was only one fighter that made the top 5 in all 3 and was ranked first in each, which is Peyton Talbot, making him the biggest favorite in the last 3 months in odds, Tapology picks and YouTube predictions. All fighters in these top 5s managed to win their fights. Which fighters managed to win their fights despite being an underdog in odds and picks over the last 3 months and possibly messing up many parlays? 5th is Gerald Meerschaert, who won against Edmen Shabashian with plus 250 in odds. 4th is Puya Tomar against Rayana Amanda with plus 250 in odds. 3rd is Weston Wilson by defeating Jaka Saragai with plus 280 in odds. 2nd is Dan Hooker, who won against Matthias Gamrot with plus 320 in odds. And in 1st place is Bruna Brasil, who won against Molly McCann with plus 375 in odds. And which fighters were picked the least by the Tapology community but still won? In 5th, with 12% of picks, we have Nico Price when he won against Alex Morono. 4th place is for Bruna Brasil, she was only picked 11%. 3rd is Toshiomi Kasama, getting 9% of the picks against Charalampur Grigory. In 2nd place is Sam Hooks, getting only 8%, but in odds she was only a plus 145 underdog, so a pretty big difference there. And the least picked fighter by the Tapology community was Weston Wilson with only 7%. Weston Wilson and Bruno Brasil are both in the top of these 2 lists. And for the biggest upset by YouTube Prediction Channels, we have Toshiomi at number 5 with 10.2% of all the picks. 4th is Denise Gomez, getting 8.3% when she fought against Eduarda Mora. In 3rd is Nico Price again. He only got 5.7% of the picks by YouTubers. 2nd is again Bruno Brasil. She only got 4.9% of all the picks. And in 1st place, for being picked the least by YouTubers but still winning the fight, we have Weston Wilson again with 2.6% and only one channel, Kunat, predicting him to win. So the biggest upset over the last 3 months in terms of odds and picks have to be both Weston Wilson and Bruno Brasil, as both were in the top in all 3. And that wraps up our look at the results from the last 3 months. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Your support means a lot. Thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.